So picture this. Disney decides to bet big on giving Snow White a 2020s glow-up, and it leads to the worst outcome imaginable. Disney was going all in for that high-budget, high-drama, and high-risk makeover. Except instead of a magical transformation, what they got was more like a cursed mirror reflecting a box office bomb, and not even a cute one. Yes, that's right. They dropped $250 million trying to reimagine one of their most iconic stories and still got steamrolled by a movie about digging in the dirt, Minecraft. No shade to that movie, but let's just say the shovel won this round. While gamers were building castles out of pixels, Disney was watching its empire crumble, one flop at a time. But before we dive into the wreckage, let's hit rewind for a hot second. This wasn't just about one movie gone wrong. This was part of a full-blown identity crisis that's been simmering at Disney HQ for a while now. Every recent remake they've pushed out has felt less like storytelling and more like an emotional breakdown caught on camera. The Little Mermaid barely stayed afloat. Peter Pan and Wendy was completely ghosted. And then came the disaster piece that was the new Snow White. Now let us set the scene. You'd think with that much money and history behind it, they'd treat this remake with some care. But nope. Instead of reimagining, they practically disowned the original. It's like they said, let's keep the apple in the name and throw everything else away. Then we have Rachel Zegler. She's talented and confident, there's no doubt about that. But she's a little too ready to set the entire Disney vault on fire. This actress came in like Snow White owed her rent money. Rather than gently stepping into the glass slippers of a beloved character, she basically stomped all over the fairy tale in combat boots, all while holding a mic and a TED Talk outline. From the jump, she made it crystal clear. This was not your grandma's Snow White, or honestly, even a version that fans could recognize.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love.
Rachel was not here to play princess. She was here to start a revolution. She called the original weird, side-eyed Prince Charming like he was a walking HR violation, and brushed off any fans who didn't like her new, no romance please snow agenda.
Weird.
Now, there's nothing wrong with updating old tales, but Rachel didn't just tweak the story. She straight up trashed the source material. She spoke about Snow White like she was delivering a keynote at a feminism conference. But that wasn't all. She went on press tours, basically dragging the 1937 version through the mud. Her interviews were less about being honored to take on this legendary role and more about rewriting the story for the modern era. It was all about reclaiming power, rejecting traditional beauty standards, and making Snow White a boss babe, fit to rule a kingdom, not fall in love. Empowerment is great and diversity is necessary, but you can't throw away the heart of a story and expect people to still feel the magic. The issue wasn't the casting, it wasn't even the new take, it was the energy. Rachel acted like she was doing Disney a favor by showing up. She shaded the old fans, dismissed romance altogether, and basically said that if you don't like it, don't watch it.
You don't seemingly like your own character, so she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat, and that's why people are so annoyed beyond just...
That's when the internet decided to play along. Fans weren't just annoyed, they were baffled. If you hate everything about a character, why play her in the first place? That's like signing up to be Batman and then complaining about the cape. And just when it looked like Disney might barely crawl out of this PR nightmare with some dignity intact, South Park showed up, and they did not come to play. Their special, Into the Pandaverse, dropped like a grenade in the middle of this whole situation. It didn't just roast Disney, it went full Thanksgiving turkey. They spoofed everything wrong with modern remakes. How beloved characters keep getting replaced in formulaic, box-checking ways, and how progress has turned into a checklist instead of genuine storytelling. In the episode, Cartman has literal nightmares where every character from his childhood is swapped out with a woman of color who resents men. It's satire, sure, but it hit a little too close to home for a lot of viewers, especially because of the villain, who is a fictionalized Kathleen Kennedy AI, flying through the multiverse, injecting corporate feminism into every reboot possible. And here's the kicker. South Park didn't even have to name-drop Disney. The target was so obvious, it might as well have come with mouse ears and a CGI sidekick.
Eric, it's okay. It's okay.
Ma, I had a dream that I was replaced by a diverse woman.
Oh,
Not again.
Between Snow White, The Little Mermaid, Marvel, and Star Wars, it's clear that audiences are feeling a bit reboot fatigued. When every childhood classic gets stripped for parts and repainted with woke vibes, people start to tune out. And poor Rachel, she became the unwilling face of that whole mess. Not because she was the problem, but because she talked too loud in a room full of people who already had their doubts. She caught heat not just for the film, but for everything people are tired of seeing in Hollywood. The preachy tone, the lack of real story, the feeling that they're being guilt-tripped into liking something that doesn't actually entertain them. Meanwhile, Disney's left holding the poisoned apple, wondering why audiences didn't bite. In an ideal universe, storytelling should evolve, and representation matters. But if you're gonna mess with a fairy tale that raised generations, maybe don't open by dragging everything people loved about it, because once the glass shatters, it's hard to put the pieces back together. And everybody directed this anger toward one person. Rachel Zegler, who wasn't even in that South Park episode, somehow became the poster child for everything they were roasting. Like, imagine being the vibe. You know that smug, know-it-all, I'm here to save this story energy? She had it in spades. She walked in with a crown she gave herself and a checklist of everything she was going to fix, whether we liked it or not. And let's be honest, most people really didn't. Now, most actresses would have read the room, caught the storm brewing, and maybe, just maybe, decided to chill for a bit, but not our girl Rachel. Instead of laying low, she pulled up to an empty movie theater like she was about to receive an honorary Oscar. She, along with a few friends, strutted in with a bouquet like it was opening night at Cannes. She even filmed a TikTok like it was her coronation day. For what, though? For which movie? Things looked so bad that you could have bought 24 tickets, hosted a yoga class in that theater, and still had rows to spare. The whole thing was supposed to be this quirky, self-aware, look at me being cute and ironic moment. But what we got was full-blown cringe cinema. The cherry on top was that the guy at the ticket booth didn't even know which movie they were there to see. Meanwhile, in another corner of the cinematic universe, something else was happening. A little movie called Minecraft was out here wrecking shop. And when we say wrecking, we mean absolutely bodying Snow White like it was nothing. This movie, which critics swore was too childish, made more money in one weekend than Disney's glossy, mega-budget fairy tale did in weeks. That's not just embarrassing, that's biblical. Minecraft didn't just show up. It walked in, kicked the castle door open, and ran off with the box office crown. While Snow White stumbled her way to a sad, humble $160 million after weeks of desperate PR, reshoots, and rewrites, Minecraft casually raked in a $300 million global opening. No drama, no backlash, no think pieces required. Just blocks, zombies, and one loud Jack Black. And that's the kicker, right? Critics were unimpressed. They rolled their eyes and called it a pixel movie for kids. But audiences showed up, packed theaters, brought their kids, and dressed up in full gamer chic. Teens were in suits, and parents were actually laughing. It wasn't just a win, it was a cultural event. Minecraft did what Snow White couldn't. It gave people a good time without lecturing them or rewriting their childhoods in exchange for Twitter points. The big difference here is that Minecraft respected its audience. It understood what made people love the game in the first place and didn't treat them like they were wrong for enjoying it. There was no smug narration about how the past was problematic. No rebranding the story to prove some grand political point. Just fun, action, laughs, and Jack Black screaming into a mic, which was honestly worth the ticket price alone. Jack Black in 5 lines had more charisma than the entirety of Disney's Snow White. No disrespect to the cast, but the vibe was off from the get-go. Where Minecraft was electric, Snow White felt like homework. And not even the fun kind with glue sticks and glitter, the kind that lectures you while draining your soul. But let's look at how the Snow White hot mess really started. It all began when Disney made their big announcement that Rachel Zegler, a rising star with Colombian and Polish roots, would be stepping into the iconic role of Snow White. And at first glance, you'd think this was just another one of Disney's live-action remakes. No big deal, right? Wrong. The second the news hit the internet, the chaos began. Tweets, TikToks, Reddit threads, think pieces, you name it, everything was out there. But why? Well, some people were quick to remind everyone that Snow White is, quite literally, named for her skin that's white as snow. Like, it's in the actual title straight from the Brothers Grimm, who probably didn't have a Colombian Polish-American princess in mind when they wrote it back in the day. But Rachel didn't duck for cover. She stood tall, chin up, and came back swinging. She clapped back, saying the story of Snow White is a fairy tale. And guess what? Fairy tales belong to everyone. She even added that people in Spanish-speaking countries adore the character too. And this was just about telling the story in a new light. Her tone was hopeful. And for a minute, you'd think maybe things were starting to calm down. People were divided, sure, but at least the shouting had turned into more of a loud debate. But that lasted only until Rachel decided to make it worse. Enter Rachel Zegler's political moment. So, the 2024 presidential election happened, and Donald Trump got reelected. People were already freaking out online, and it was a digital firestorm, but Rachel grabbed the gasoline. She went on Instagram and let it rip. She made a passionate post about how she couldn't imagine raising a daughter in a country led by Trump. Then came the line, the one that had people losing their minds. May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace. Well, that was not the Disney princess quote the studio probably had in mind. The fallout was immediate, furious, and explosive. Trump supporters were outraged, and conservatives called for her head on a platter. There were hashtags, boycotts, endless threads calling her divisive, hypocritical, and completely off-brand for a Disney lead. It was giving Gina Carano Part 2, except this time with glitter and tiaras. Under all that heat, Rachel did what pretty much every celebrity in hot water does. She issued an apology, or, well, something that looked like an apology. She said she got caught up in the moment, that her emotions got the best of her, and that she regretted adding fuel to the negativity online. She threw in a line about respecting differing opinions and vowed to be more thoughtful in the future.
I never want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats.
And Disney? Well, they kept completely silent. They didn't defend Rachel, and they didn't condemn her. They just pretended none of it was happening. Meanwhile, the internet was going full gladiator pit, and Disney was in the back counting ticket sales and crossing their fingers that people would still show up. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Things got so tense behind the scenes that producer Mark Platt literally hopped on a flight from New York just to talk to Rachel in person. Yep, it was that serious.
They flew an executive, one of the producers, out to go visit personally with Rachel Zegler to say, could you please take that down? Because we understand you can have your political views, but those aren't really helpful while you're trying to build an audience for a movie. Maybe you could save them for like your diary and your friends, but like maybe not, maybe just take the tweet down. And she wouldn't. And then they had to hire a special media consultant for her to follow her around all the time and make sure she didn't continue shitting on Snow White.
He basically told her that those political posts were not just her business anymore. Her comments were messing with the movie's reputation, overseas buzz, and even Gal's vibe during the press tour. But sources say Rachel didn't quite realize how loud her voice had gotten in Hollywood's echo chamber. In the end, it cost Disney more than they could have ever imagined.